thank you guys for coming here this afternoon. And this is Ruthi Hoffman. She's here with us from World Vision International. And actually, Ruthi and I just met a couple of weeks ago. I was up at World Vision headquarters in Monrovia, and actually specifically to meet Ruthi. One of my contacts there really wanted me to meet her because she's a policy advisor and has been really involved in the issues of human trafficking. And if you've been around giving children hope for a little while, you know we've been getting more and more involved in the issue of human slavery. We actually have a couple upcoming events around that, but some information here about some of the art that's going on tour in Laguna in next weekend actually. Ooh, very soon. And then we're part of a global forum on human trafficking training in October. And our gala at the end of October will be David Batstone, who is the president of the Not For Sale campaign, talking about a clinic that we're doing together in northern Thailand for kids that have been rescued out of the labor and sex slave industry. So that's why Ruthi and I initially met, and we got talking, and I said, hey, we're having this speaking series, and I think you'd be a great speaker. So she's here with us today.
I actually went to Westmont. I studied communication, and then I did a master's degree in communication as well. And the reason I did that, it's not necessarily the only way to get into advocacy, but for me, it was a really good place to learn, to work on my persuasion skills, speeches, because that's a lot of what we do, writing and speaking, and kind of figuring out, you know, what's going to persuade these political leaders to change their minds. How do you assess what, you know, the best message would be? So studying communication for me helped me kind of build those skills to then, you know, once I learned about the issues, be able to communicate that well and be persuasive in that. Yeah, and what I did too, you guys, is when I was in my graduate school, you do a thesis, which is a big paper, you know, where you write on pretty much any issue you want within your area of study. So I wrote my thesis on the issue of sex trafficking. So it was really great because I took a school assignment and was able to learn about the issue that I really cared about and write a lot about it. So I mean, I think that's something that you all can do in your school right now, if you're still in school, is think about what are the issues you really care about, what would you want to learn about them, how could maybe you learning about something help you be an advocate or speak to others, tell others about the issue. So you can use your school research papers, you know, book assignment, reading assignments, things like that, to really study the issues that you care about, and then you're going to be an expert. You know, like that's how a lot of probably how I got my job was through studying it. I became an expert on these issues. I wanted you guys to know kind of how I got into this. I was in college when I first heard about human trafficking, and ever since then, I knew that was what I wanted to work on. I knew that was what, you know, I was passionate about and what I wanted to be an advocate for. So, like I said, I used my graduate school to learn more about it. I started meeting people, going to events, you know, getting to know the people that were experts in it, trying to learn, volunteering, putting on events, like friends, we would get together and like do, you know, rallies or speak at different colleges sometimes, you know, just learning as much as I could so I could educate other people too. And so I feel totally blessed that I get to do it for my job now, but it's also something that I did as a volunteer until I had a job to do it, you know? So I really want to encourage you to think about what it is that you're passionate about. Like, what are the issues that you say are just unjust, unfair, and you want to do something about it? What do you want to change? What issues motivate you? What are you passionate about? And think about, you know, maybe it'll be your job someday, or maybe it'll just be something that is a big part of your life that you volunteer with and you teach others about and give your time to. There's so many ways you can get involved locally too, because I don't want you to think that this is all that happens around the globe. Like, it happens, we heard about injustice here in Orange County and LA, and you know, there's so many ways that we can be involved locally to make a difference too. You don't have to wait until you can go overseas, but you can really do something here in your own community. And that's the practice you need to then have a job in this area if that's what you want someday, or make a big difference. Like, start with what you can do today, the piece you can do, and you'll get, you know, more experience and then be able to make a really big impact through that. Well, just to give you a little bit of information about what World Vision is, it's one of the groups that Giving Children Hope contributes to. We get supplies from here, and then we ship them around the world to the programs and projects where we work with children around the globe. World Vision is a faith-based group. We're a Christian organization, and we work in relief, which is responding to emergency situations. We work in development, which is trying to bring people out of situations of poverty through long-term projects and programs that change that situation. And then we do advocacy, which is what I get to work in, which is a lot about changing systems and structures so that they're more just and more fair. So we work in these three areas, especially with children is our main focus, and with families and communities to try to tackle some of the root causes, the reasons why people are in poverty around the globe. Yeah, so click one more. And World Vision has been around for quite a while as far as nonprofit organizations go. We started in the 1950s, actually, in California. We work now in almost 100 different countries around the world, and we sponsor children. That's kind of the foundational way that we operate. So you've seen maybe commercials on TV where you can sponsor a child, adopt a child for, usually it's like $30 a month, and that's your specific child that you support. World Vision functions that way. We have over 3 million children. But we work not just with those individual kids, but with their communities and their families. So it's not just that child getting something for that sponsorship, but we try to change the entire situation and the context in which they live. So it's not exclusively on them as well. And we have a lot of people working for World Vision, almost 40,000 staff. It's really huge. But most of those people are nationals in the places where they live. I know, it's like a country or something. Major. But a lot of those most of those are people that already live in the communities in the countries where we're working. So they know the people, they know the issues that children are facing, and they're really good at coming up with the best solutions for them. And we, again, work a lot with children, but we also, obviously, kids are in communities and they have parents and families, so we work with their families, their communities, the leaders, to try to make a difference for kids. Go to the next one. And the reason, we focus a lot on children because that's where we feel called and most passionate about as an organization, but it's also that children are most affected by poverty. They're the ones, when you're talking about situations of real poverty, that are greatly affected by it, and so we want to make the biggest difference for them. So, some of the ways that we work, I talked about sponsorship. World Vision works especially with children to look at their education, making sure they have access to quality, good education. We work around issues of nutrition and health for children, making sure they have access to community, local level opportunities for having health, nutrition, prevention of diseases, and then protecting them from abuse and harm. Because a lot of times these children are most vulnerable to being exploited, abused, and especially if we're talking about situations of conflict, war, or emergencies, where they're really going to be most vulnerable to being hurt and abused in those situations. So we like to focus on what we call the most vulnerable children, or children in extreme circumstances, which include children living on the streets in a lot of places where we work. Children, and sometimes when children are living on the streets, they might be with their parents, but then you also have children that are away from their parents in that situation. Children that might be suffering from exploitive labor, abusive situations where they're not going to school but being used in dangerous or harmful labor, or kids that are exposed to conflict, war, child soldiers, situations like that.